So let's talk MCC. The conversation about the Master Chief Collection has been an interesting one to watch. At first, it was purely talk about whether or not this was all just hype or whether or not this was something that was going to stay for a while. Now, the conversation goes about whether or not Halo MCC should perfectly preserve the games in their historical version, warts and all differences between modern sensibilities and sensibilities back when these games were released and all, whether or not it should adapt and evolve the titles for today's audience. Also, whether or not it should include aim assist on controller or mouse and keyboard, or you should be able to opt in to only play with people using one of these control devices, splitting a potentially small community, fracturing it to the point where then you'll get people complaining that they don't find people to play with. So let's talk about a few of these things and why, to borrow off of a friend who happened to get this video out before me, why I think Halo is a bit misunderstood in 2020. That's right, 2020. I should say 2020, not 2020, because that just sounds weird. So to get this out of the way, if you guys watch my channel and you watch EposVox, which you should, he's amazing and a much more reliable and awesome YouTuber than myself. He also recently did a video, and then BBKDragoon did a video responding to his video, and I admittedly have watched both of them, but I have this on the docket to do anyway. It just, they happened to get there first. So if I hit some of the points that they did, I would recommend checking out some of their videos as well. They definitely put a lot of thought into this, and their point of view are extremely valid and viable and valuable for Halo as a whole. But my thoughts come from a slightly different angle and a slightly different position. Right now, you have the Halo community who is saying that Bloom should not exist in 2020 in a Halo game. Bloom was a mistake back in Halo Reach's day and should go away. And you should also not allow mouse and keyboard players to be battling controller players because it's different controller devices, different input devices, and therefore they have different advantages and disadvantages to each, although people really only talk about the advantages of the control device that they don't use, because if somebody's using that, obviously that is why they beat me, not because they are a better player. And we're not going to get into that too much. It does look like at Anaheim, which is the first Halo Reach event in over a decade and the first Halo event of this decade, that both mouse and keyboard and controller will be permitted. So what the settings are going to be, if they're going to tweak the aim assist on controller in some way, or if you're just going to see players with the device that they are most comfortable with popping off and doing awesome plays, old school, long-time Halo pros, that's going to be competing in this kind of an event. So I wouldn't be surprised to see awesome plays regardless of what input device people are using. But for the casual everyday player, a perceived advantage over one device over another really causes a lot of toxicity in the community, and that's not something that you need when you're reviving a game which in and of itself was a big source of negativity in the community as a whole. So should competitive split mouse and keyboard and controller players? And I don't think that's a good idea. I think potentially allowing people to opt themselves into something that might be the best possible way to have the best of both worlds, but I would really hammer it home that opting into that system basically eliminates half of your potential player base if we assume a perfectly 50-50 even split between both input devices, meaning it's going to take you twice as long to potentially find matches. So then you don't get to complain if you don't find people. It seems like a weird give and take that people would want both, but people will undoubtedly want both. I also think that it's worth noting that with Halo Infinite and future Xbox first party titles, future Halo titles, with those games being available on PC, you're now not only talking about just controller versus keyboard on one device, you're talking about potential cross-play, potential cross-platform play, where somebody could have a machine that gives them much higher performance than what's available in the Xbox Series X. The GTX 2080 already outperforms the Series X and the PS5 based off of their supposed specs. The CEO or CTO of NVIDIA recently went out and said that, and I'm not surprised by that whatsoever. Consoles are mid-tier. They are the baseline, and you'll very easily be able to build a machine that's more powerful than a console. So Is that going to be a perceived advantage? Is somebody going to want to be able to opt out of cross-platform play in Halo Infinite? Will that even be provided? That's a question that I think we need to start discussing now on the small scale in Halo Reach. Something that people need to potentially prepare themselves for. That not everybody will be running the exact same input device and the exact same hardware in Halo. That's just not going to be a thing anymore. Even if everybody was restricted to controller on PC, individual PC performance would have some effect to some degree as far as potentially giving a player an advantage. It wipes out one of the previously universal truths that everybody was playing on an Xbox or an Xbox One. Now there's variation there. So variation in the input type is just yet another variable, and solving for just that one will not solve for everything overall. So the mouse and keyboard versus controller debate is something that I think is probably only going to be the tip of the iceberg for the greater Halo conversation moving forward, especially as we potentially go forward to a Halo Infinite beta early in this year. I would love to see it, but at the same time, that's only gonna get a little bit more increased as time goes on. And then talking about things that people want changed from the original Halo game, Bloom is a huge part of Reach. All of the reticles are animated to handle it, and everything about this game. Bloom was the aspect of Reach that was, aside from armor abilities, the most different. And then when you go into competitive play and most armor abilities are disabled anyway, Bloom was still present, ever present, and was a big point of contention then, and is an even bigger point of contention now. Now, most of Reach MCC goes by title update settings, which was a reduction of the baseline Bloom that Reach shipped with on its first day to 85% of the original value, meaning that you are able to shoot much faster and the reticle contracts much faster. And this differs per gun. The DMR, you still have to pace your shots if you don't want to potentially introduce that randomness into your performance. However, with guns like the needle rifle, you can basically spam that thing, firing it as quickly as you can because it contracts as fast or potentially even just slightly faster than its fire rate, meaning that it is virtually unaffected by Bloom. But this leads into the conversation of, is MCC for you to be able to play these games as they were, or play those games as they're intended with a 2020 vision on what these titles were supposed to be or should be in today's gaming world. MCC was always marketed as this time capsule, this preservation, this historical version of Halo brought to made playable, but maybe not made comparable to current gen titles. It was never marketed as this is Reach, but the 2020 version of Reach with additional title updates and a better engine, and Bloom has been removed, and we've updated all the sound effects and the graphics of this game. No, this was, you get to play Reach just like you did back then, but now on your PC or on your Xbox One X or on your Xbox Series X, whenever the game is probably going to be forwards compatible, you just get to play that now on the newest hardware. And that's what I believe Reach is. That's what I believe the MCC is supposed to be. That's what the MCC has always been marketed as. And with not only MCC, but other games recently being remastered, re-released, this conversation is a little bit bigger than just Halo, but I think is a very important one. When remastering or re-releasing a title, is it important to preserve the title as it is, or to bring it up to more recent standards? Now, with remasters, it's kind of there that you're going to be doing something like Combat Evolved Anniversary did the whole graphical update. It moved it to a newer engine, but it tried to preserve the look and feel of the general gameplay. However, Halo Reach is not getting a graphical update. The models are not being changed. It looks better, it's rendered better in MCC than it is on Xbox backwards compatibility, or even if it was in some of the older versions, but the core gameplay mechanics have not changed, and that includes Bloom, much to a lot of people's frustrations. So should Bloom be removed, and should Bloom just go away because it's not applicable in 2020 for some reason? Everybody just decided that. I also don't think that this is the case, because we should be playing these games as they were intended. And speaking of playing these games as they were intended, let's also talk about the map pool for Halo Reach, because what we're getting is not what Reach was back in the day. A lot of the playlists in Halo Reach PC right now are either Forge World maps or CEA downloadable content maps, or just maps that aren't really the core classical this was a Halo Reach gameplay. I don't think I've ever played a game on Uncaged, and this one big team battle map that I was pushed into was a Forge World map. Granted, very cleanly done, very clean lines, but with huge, wide open, empty, boxy areas that had absolutely no cover, no character, and just felt like I was playing a map that somebody had just made in about 20-40 minutes. This is what's in matchmaking, by the way, and also with no voting and no ability to control what maps you're going to play, we're stuck in a Halo 5 style map pool rotation where you play the maps that are in the rotation for this day, and then the next day it might be a different set of maps or the same maps but with slightly different weighting. So day 1 you will play map A, day 2 you will play map B, day 3 you're going to play a hell of a lot of Ivory Tower, but in general it doesn't feel like the Reach I remember. There was a ton of different game types and maps, all with visually distinct performance, and they all played differently, and most importantly, they were built with Reach's armor abilities in mind. Playing on some of the CEA maps that were never designed for Reach's armor abilities, like Jetpack or anything else like that, just breaks the game instantaneously, because people can get into areas that they were never intended to get into and have huge lines of sight that they can just use to dominate the map, and you get spawn trapped and spawn camped for the remainder of the match. The game is over, but it's going to take another 4 minutes or so for that long, slow death to finally play out. So this is something that I actually think 343 should go and change, updating the map pool and making it a bit more akin to what Halo Reach was back in the day would be a huge step and a quality of life improvement to make Reach feel more like Reach, not just Reach models playing around in a CEA map. And out of all the complaints, this is really the only one I think 343 needs to address. There was already problems with people boosting in Griffball, but the ban hammer has hit almost immediately after my most recent video went out. Just timing wise, I thought it was funny that I said something along the lines of, I'd expect a fix for this very soon, and then 2 days later, they were gone. So that's been improved. Some of the thoughts around the season pass and season passes as a whole across multiple games is something that I personally find frustrating, but that's because of my limited gameplay time. I think it's a valuable investment system for the people who are going to be playing one game and only one game, but it just feels a little heartbreaking that playing Halo or Destiny or any game that has a battle pass feels like a chore to grind through all the levels instead of something that I unlock the rewards through my accomplishments and accolades, and that's something that I kind of miss from back in the day. But overall, I'm just excited that Halo is part of the conversation again. I said this in the video that I put out 2 weeks ago. I love seeing Halo GIFs on the front page of Reddit. I love seeing the Our Halo subreddit be active. I love that people are sending in clips for funny and lucky moments. I love that Halo has an active player base and can just be in 2020 without having to worry about rushing Halo Infinite. I want that game to be damn near perfect, and I realize a little late now that I didn't get much time in Halo Mythic to get a video about that, but I think, just to wrap it all up, I think Halo Mythic and the gameplay somewhat akin to that could be a perfect Halo Infinite that should make as many people happy. Not everyone, you're never going to get everyone, but as many people as possible happy going forward. So I'd really like to see something come of that. But anyway, that was just my thoughts. Again, huge shout out to EposVox and BBKDragoon. I will link to both of their videos down in the description of this video. This isn't exactly a response to them, mainly a parallel thread and just a different train of thought from somebody else who was also planning on making the video, but as with a couple things lately, I've been kind of bad at YouTube. Here's hoping we can make 2020 a little bit better about that. As always, if you want to see videos that I'm doing early, for example, I have the first episode of a playthrough in a brand new game that you should check out. It is another first-person shooter and something that is gonna be a little torturous for myself, so you all seem to enjoy that. Hit me up on Patreon at patreon.com/Legundo, or if you want to join the conversation, I do have a Discord server at legundo.com/Discord where you can come join in. We got a bunch of people who chill there from time to time. It's not the busiest Discord out there, but it's got a cool little bit of charm to it. So if you want to join in, I'd love to see you. But that's pretty much it. I just wanted to put a video out on my thoughts on Halo as a whole. I don't know if I'm going to edit this down too much. We'll see. I might do the webcam plus gameplay instead of cutting in between. I don't know. Something tells me by watching this, you'll know before I do. But until next time, my name's Legundo. That's what was on my mind. I appreciate you. Be good to each other. And I'll see you next time.